You know that feeling when your ex randomly likes your Instagram post at 2 a.m., or when you get that unexpected, "Hey, how have you been?" text after weeks of silence. You're not imagining things. There's actually something intentional happening under the surface. Your avoidant ex is running quiet experiments on you, and most people don't even realize it's happening. Here's what makes this confusing. These aren't evil schemes or some mastermind plot to mess with your head. This is their attachment system doing exactly what it's programmed to do. It's trying to figure out whether getting close to you again feels safe, or whether it's going to trigger the same overwhelming emotions that made them pull away in the first place. By the end of this, you're going to recognize what these tests look like, the psychology behind why avoidants can't stop running them, and most importantly, how to respond in a way that either leads to a healthier reconnection or finally gives you the clarity to let go. Because the truth is simple. Understanding these tests isn't about playing mind games. It's about protecting your peace and making sure you're not signing up for the same heartbreak all over again. There's something important you need to understand about the avoidant mind after a breakup. When someone with avoidant attachment walks away, there's usually an immediate rush of relief. All the pressure to open up, all the emotional conversations, all that closeness that felt like it was slowly suffocating them suddenly disappears. They can breathe again. They feel free. For a while, everything feels lighter. But researchers who study attachment patterns have found something interesting. That relief stage doesn't last. After some time passes, maybe weeks, maybe months, something inside them shifts. The anxiety fades a little. The emotional walls lower just enough, and suddenly they start remembering the relationship in a different way. They romanticize it, they miss you, they replay the good moments and conveniently forget the parts that made them feel trapped. Here's the problem though. Even if they miss you, even if part of them wants to reach out, their nervous system is still wired the same way. It still signals danger whenever they think about vulnerability, about admitting mistakes, about risking rejection. So they can't just come back openly. That would require too much emotional exposure all at once. Instead, they do something quieter. They test the situation. They send small signals to watch how you respond. They check whether you feel safe. They try to figure out if reconnecting would be worth the emotional risk. Think of it like a cat that ran outside during a storm. When the storm ends, the cat doesn't just walk straight back inside. It sits at the edge of the yard. It watches through the window. It takes a few careful steps forward, then backs up again. It needs proof that the environment is safe before committing. Your avoidant ex does the same thing, except instead of your porch, they use texts, likes, stories, and subtle communication to see if your emotional world has changed enough for them to approach. One of the first ways this shows up is through what feels like a harmless nudge. Out of nowhere, your phone lights up with their name. Saw this and thought of you. Or maybe just, "How are you?" Sometimes it's even less than that. Just a meme, a reaction, a random emoji with no explanation. On the surface, it feels small, maybe even sweet. They're thinking about you, right? What's really happening underneath is different. They're checking your emotional availability without putting themselves at risk. They're asking silent questions. Are you still invested in me? Will you reply fast? Are you angry, hurt, cold, or warm? Have you moved on, or is the door still open? It's like dipping one toe into water before stepping in. It's safe for them because if your reaction scares them, they can vanish again without ever having to explain. After all, it was just a casual text. You can tell whether this leads anywhere by what happens after you reply. If you answer warmly but briefly, someone who's actually ready to do better will build momentum. They'll ask real questions. They'll stay consistent. The conversation moves past small talk. There's flow. But if they're still stuck in avoidant habits, something else happens. You reply kindly, maybe even match their tone, and then silence, or one more shallow message, then they disappear again. They got what they needed. Confirmation that you still care. Now they can retreat back to safety. Your best move is simple. Be polite, but restrained. Match their energy, don't exceed it. Don't chase the conversation. Don't dump your feelings. Don't try to keep things alive. Something like, "I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. Hope you are too." Then stop. No fishing for more. Someone serious will come back with substance. Someone looking for validation will fade, and that tells you everything. Another way avoidants test is through visibility and jealousy. Suddenly, they're everywhere again, watching all your stories, liking posts from months ago, posting more themselves, and somehow their content feels designed to make you notice. Sometimes they casually mention they're seeing someone, or that someone is interested in them. It feels random, but it isn't. Psychologically, they're checking two things. First, are you still emotionally available? Second, do you still care enough to react? Avoidants fear being replaced even though they're the ones who left. This test lets them gather information without being vulnerable. If you react, ask questions, seem bothered, they learn you're still invested, and strangely, that makes them feel safer. If you don't react and seem genuinely fine, it can trigger their own fear of being forgotten and sometimes push them to reach out more directly. Someone who's doing inner work eventually stops performing and communicates honestly. Someone stuck in patterns keeps playing social media games, hoping for a reaction without exposure. Your move is quiet strength. Don't react. Don't post to provoke jealousy back. Don't ask about who they're seeing. Don't acknowledge the sudden attention. Just live your life normally. Someone serious will eventually speak with intention. Someone who isn't will either escalate the performance until it's obvious or disappear. Either way, you gain clarity. Then there's the one that feels emotional, the late-night message, the vulnerable tone. They had a rough day. Something reminded them of you. They're struggling and you're the person they thought of. They miss talking to you. It finally feels real. What they're testing here is whether you'll still act as their emotional safe place without them having to actually be your partner. Avoidants often miss the comfort of connection more than the responsibility of commitment. They want soothing without obligation. If you rush in, fix everything, comfort endlessly, and reopen emotional intimacy without boundaries, they get the benefit of you without changing anything. And once they feel regulated again, they often pull back. The healthier response is warmth with limits. You can care without over-functioning. You can listen without becoming their therapist. You can say something supportive without reopening the entire emotional door. Something like, "That sounds really heavy. I hope things ease up for you." And then you stop there. If they want more, they have to show consistency, not just crisis-based closeness. Another subtle test is curiosity about your growth. They ask about your life, your routines, your mindset, your changes. Not just surface level, but who you are now. They're scanning for emotional safety. Are you still reactive? Are you still waiting? Are you still the same person they left? They're quietly asking, has this environment changed, or will it feel just as overwhelming if I come back? If you respond with grounded confidence instead of emotional hunger, it changes the dynamic. You don't oversell your healing. You don't prove anything. You just show stability. Someone ready to reconnect feels drawn to that. Someone not ready gets uncomfortable and retreats. Sometimes they test through nostalgia. They bring up inside jokes, old trips, memories you shared. It feels romantic, but it's really about emotional temperature. They're checking if the past still has power over you. If you fall straight back into longing, they feel safe but also superior. If you acknowledge the memory calmly without emotionally collapsing into it, they see you differently. They realize reconnecting would require real effort, not just history. Across all these moments, the pattern is the same. Avoidants want information without exposure. They want safety without vulnerability. They want connection without risking rejection. So they send signals instead of statements. Your power isn't in decoding every message. It's in responding with balance, warm, not desperate, open, not chasing, kind, not self-abandoning. When you stop over-giving and start matching energy, something interesting happens. The ones who are only testing fade away. The ones who actually want something real have to step forward properly. And that's the real purpose of understanding this. Not to manipulate, not to chase, but to make sure if someone comes back into your life, they come back differently than they left. Avoidants want the advantages of a relationship. They want comfort, emotional safety, someone who understands them, someone who can steady them when life feels heavy, but they don't want the responsibilities that come with those benefits. Responsibility triggers their deep fear of being trapped or losing their sense of self. Their nervous system equates commitment with danger, so they reach for closeness while simultaneously resisting what closeness actually requires. Attachment researchers have observed that many avoidant people keep what are called backup connections. These are people they can return to for emotional relief while still keeping them at a distance. They become emotional safe spaces without real commitment. When someone is truly ready to grow and do things differently, they won't just take support, they'll also give it back, even if it's small at first. There's mutual effort, there's reciprocity, but someone who isn't ready will absorb your emotional energy, feel better, and then vanish until the next wave of stress hits them again. Your response matters here. You want to be caring without becoming their unpaid therapist. Something like, "That sounds really tough. I'm sorry you're dealing with that. I hope you find the support you need." It's kind, but it has boundaries. You're not offering to meet immediately. You're not jumping into a 3-hour emotional rescue mission. You're not fixing their life. If they truly want you back in a real way, they'll respect that boundary, and it will push them to show up with more consistency. If they don't, they'll either ignore the limit or take the comfort and disappear once again. Another pattern shows up when your avoidant ex starts speaking in possibilities instead of realities. They say things like, "I've been thinking about us lately," or "Maybe we rushed things before," or "I could see us trying again when the timing feels better." Sometimes they add that they're working on themselves, that they're in therapy, reading about attachment, or finally understanding what went wrong. It sounds like growth. It sounds hopeful. It sounds like progress. But hidden inside those hopeful words is a test. They're measuring whether you'll wait around forever without any real actions or timelines. They're checking if you'll accept potential instead of commitment. They want to know if you'll stay available while they keep their freedom. It's emotional connection without accountability. Dr. Amir Levine, author of Attached, explains that avoidant people often use future-oriented language as a defense. It creates closeness without requiring closeness right now. It feels intimate without actually being intimate. It's a promise without structure. It's fantasy without follow-through. Real change looks different. Real growth pairs future talk with present behavior. Someone who means it will say, "I want to rebuild trust with you," and then ask if you're free this week to talk. They'll say, "I started therapy," and share what they're learning. There are details, there's movement. They don't just sell the idea, they show the work. Someone stuck in old patterns keeps everything vague. When you ask, "What would that look like?" or "What kind of timeline are you thinking?" they get uncomfortable. You hear things like, "Soon," or "I just need more time," or "Let's see how it goes." Nothing concrete, nothing grounded. Your response should acknowledge the sentiment but require action. Something like, "I appreciate you sharing that." When you're ready to talk about what reconciliation would actually look like with real steps, let me know. Then you stop engaging in imaginary futures. Someone serious will take that as motivation to step up. Someone who isn't will either get defensive or keep feeding you vague promises without change. Another test most people miss is consistency. Avoidant exes aren't only testing you, they're also testing themselves. They're monitoring their own reactions. Do I feel trapped if we talk more? Do I want to run when things start feeling close again? Can I tolerate intimacy without my nervous system panicking? They're watching themselves in real time. That's why you see confusing cycles. They reach out every day for a week, then suddenly go quiet. They make plans, but when you're together, they seem distracted. They pull close, then retreat. It's emotional regulation happening live. They're trying to build tolerance for closeness in small amounts, almost like physical therapy for attachment wounds. Healthy progress shows up as communication during the pullback. Someone growing will say, "I'm feeling overwhelmed, but I don't want to disappear. Can we slow down for a few days while I reset?" They're learning to manage distance without cutting you off completely. That's actual development. But someone repeating old habits will ghost with no explanation, then return acting like nothing happened, expecting you to accept inconsistency as normal. They want access to you without reliability. Your response sets the tone. You can say, "I appreciate you reaching out, but if we're rebuilding anything, I need consistency. If you need space, that's okay, but I need you to communicate instead of leaving me guessing." You're defining what's acceptable and what isn't anymore. Someone who's truly trying will listen and adjust, even if imperfectly at first. You'll see effort. Someone who isn't ready will get defensive, minimize your needs, or keep repeating the same pattern, hoping you'll eventually tolerate it. Here's the part you really need to hear. If you're still paying attention to an avoidant ex, part of you probably hopes they come back changed. That's human. When you care about someone, you want to believe growth is possible, that the bond mattered, that things could be different next time. But these tests aren't about you proving your worth. You're not auditioning for their approval. You're collecting information. You're watching whether they can actually show up in ways that meet your emotional needs now. Every test they run on you, you're running one on them. You're testing whether they've genuinely shifted, whether their nervous system can tolerate closeness, whether they can handle vulnerability without shutting down, whether they're willing to do the uncomfortable work of a real relationship instead of just romanticizing connection from a safe distance. And sometimes the answer is no. Sometimes they're not ready. Sometimes they won't be ready for a long time. Maybe not with you, maybe not right now. And that isn't about your value or whether you're lovable. It's about where they are in their own healing. You can't love someone into emotional availability. You can't be patient enough, understanding enough, or perfect enough to make someone ready who isn't. Waiting doesn't transform people. Work does. The moment you accept that, you stop pausing your life for someone who might change someday. If they come back with consistency, vulnerability, and action, not just words, then you get to decide if you want to try again. But if they're still testing, still pulling close, then pushing away, still wanting the benefits of you without the responsibility of you, you deserve to walk forward without accepting crumbs. Clarity replaces confusion. Choice replaces hope. Strength replaces waiting. Understanding these patterns gives you power. It moves you from guessing to knowing, from emotional limbo to emotional direction, from staying stuck to actually moving forward with intention.